Yes, indeed. I believe, Nima, that Trump probably has had enough. He wants out. And at first, I was very skeptical about these reported this reported acrimony between Trump and Netanyahu, but it seems that it's real, and we can see that by the reactions from Israel and Israeli supporters who are borderline hysterical about this. I mean, they are now comforting themselves by discussing war on Turkey and or Egypt. As they have to comfort themselves. Somehow, all they know how to do is kill and destroy. So I guess if they're not allowed to go kill and destroy Iran and Lebanon, well, then Turkey will have to do. It's complete insanity. I thought it was. I think this is a very, very hopeful moment, and I thought it was very interesting that Trump praised the role of Russia and China, because he said that they were neutral. I don't know that they're neutral. They're practically allies with Iran. They provided intelligence to the Iranian. They provided radars, satellite imaging. I think certain kinds of anti-aircraft, anti-ballistic missile systems, and so forth. So not exactly neutral, but he gave them this praise, which tells me that maybe there has been a certain level of coordination between the American side and the Russians and the Chinese. And it always takes me back to what Sergei Karaganov said a few months ago. Well, more than a year ago, he said that we see our role with the Trump administration as helping the United States transition from the global hegemon to a normal global power in the least disruptive way imaginable. And then I always pay attention to how the Russians and the Chinese are reacting to the United States. And they have been very restrained. They haven't criticized Trump too much. But on the other hand, they have made it clear that they support Iran in this conflict. And so it seems to me that they must have helped persuade Trump to climb down, and that they will probably play an important role in the creation of the next new security architecture in the region. And so I think that this is the next stage, which will depend on whether the Israelis, whether the Zionist interests will be able to sabotage peace negotiations, whether they will try to again assassinate Iranian leaders. I think this is the reason why the document was not signed in Geneva, but it was signed virtually. It was they both Pezeshkian and Trump signed real hard copies, but Trump was in Versailles, which is interesting, and Pezeshkian was in Tehran. So nobody had to travel, because who knows, if Pezeshkian traveled to Geneva, who knows whether he would come back.
Yeah. I think you mentioned the role of China and Russia, which is important. We know that Pakistani government has a good relationship with China, with Iran, with the United States, with everybody. Basically, they were going around and talking with Chinese, with Iranians, with Americans, and we had you remember, Iranian foreign minister going to China, going to Russia, talking with them. It was
Exactly.
a total cooperation, when it comes to, because these countries are reshaping the whole calculation, in my opinion. And just today, we've learned Chinese foreign ministry said the cooperation with Iran will deepen, and China and Iran are comprehensive strategic partners and will continue to advance their comprehensive strategic partnership. It's going to be $400 billion, and they're deepening that. So the everything I think is reshaping. And Donald Trump, how do you see the way that the Trump administration is somehow perceiving that, or is getting there? Because looking at G7 and the summit of G7, what is your perception of the today? He comes into the meeting, he says, "I'm the boss, I'm here," and he goes around and sit. And this he says, "I'm the boss," but when he laughs, so he smiles after that. He knows that those things doesn't exist anymore because the world has changed somehow.
Yes, Nima, I think I'm still very, very mystified by what possessed Trump to even go to war against Iran. I mean, that was so insane that
I think it's going to remain in the history of the United States, this war.
Yes, yes. And somehow Trump was persuaded to go ahead with it. Even though we remember that in 2019, there was great pressure on Trump to go to war against Iran. And he said no. And that was a big scandal at the time. You know, it was a long time ago, but it was quite a scandal. And so he knew not to go then. Well, he went ahead now. Something happened. I don't know that we might never know what happened, but you know, at least from what we heard from Trump himself and from Marco Rubio, they went to war for the benefit of Israel. They were dragged into it by the Israelis. Okay, let's pretend that that's true. So if Israeli influence was the defining feature of this war, then Trump must feel very angry because they have, you know, he has been misled. If that were the case, he has been betrayed, lied to. You know, Benjamin Netanyahu, who I've always said I don't buy this idea that Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are great friends. I always thought that since Trump's first term that Trump doesn't like Netanyahu. Maybe he hates him. So what was it? Anyhow, whatever it was, Trump said like, okay, I'll go, I'll participate in it, and he betrayed his base. He alienated a lot of people who were his supporters, like his passionate supporters, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, oh God, you know, like a whole bit. Now I'm blanking out, but like there was a whole Tulsi Gabbard, maybe. There was a whole number of people around him that seemed genuine, authentic American patriots whom he suddenly alienated. And he was surrounded with nothing but zealous Zionists. And so everything went very badly for him, you know, a few months before midterm elections. So he must be furious at the Israelis, at Benjamin Netanyahu, at this whole Zionist cabal surrounding him. According to Tucker Carlson's testimonies, he's aware that these people actually don't like him either, that they hate him, and that they have manipulated him. And so by now he might feel outright vengeful, not just resentful and hateful towards them, but maybe even vengeful. And at the same time, you know, the Chinese, the Russians, they've been restrained, they've been constructive, they've been friendly. And I think that they may, very recently, you know, if this wasn't all if this wasn't all overwhelmed by Iran war, very recently in the news cycle, there was, I think the Russians are actually starting the construction work to build the tunnel under the Bering Strait. So the Russians are not letting go of this spirit of Alaska. They still prioritize relations with the United States. So the idea that they want to manage the United States, help it transition to being a normal power, all of that is going on. And I think that in all these contacts that have been going on intensely behind behind the scenes, that all of this has come back to Trump, that he's aware of this. And he's like, gosh, that was a mistake to go with the crazies. But the doors were not slammed in my face by the other people. And so I think that this has forced Trump to eat humble pie and to question who are his friends, who are his allies, who is the constructive sides and who are the crazies. And so it hopefully strengthens the multipolarity, the Belt and Road Initiative, the BRICS, whatever's remained of it. And it makes those forces stronger, and it makes the imperial Zionist conspiracy weaker.